So this lick is going to take a little explaining. Now, the demo doesn't really have a lot to it, but let me show you some really cool things that are going on here. If you were playing in a blues situation, a 12-bar blues, for instance, or whatever kind of blues you want, and we've got the three chords A7, D7, and E7 playing, okay? What this lick really is trying to show you are different ways to approach key notes that you can emphasize within the context of your solo. So over the A chord, for instance, if we were to look at this note right here, which is the major third of that chord, and look at this note right here, which is the 8th fret, which is actually the dominant 7th of this A7 chord. It's the sound of that 7th right there. Okay? So in that, what I'm doing is I'm emphasizing the major third and the sound of that 7th over that A7 chord. Now, I could be playing any lick I want to, and I could drop into those notes. One of those notes, both of those notes, whatever it is I like. So as I'm playing, it just sounds really cool to use. Now, you know, I don't have to just go the whole time, but it's just certainly something that I would try and target. But here's the point. When it goes to the D7 chord, now we can take a look at that and see that this note is actually the 7th of that D7 chord, and this becomes the major third now, right here. So they kind of change places, but visually, if you look at it, all I'm doing is moving down a half step for my 4 chord. You see? So if I was soloing and it was on the 1 chord, and then here comes the 4 chord, I might do a lick, and then go to those notes somehow. You see? And then 1 chord, I can go back. Now, needless to say, if the 4 chord is emphasizing those 2 notes, if I just move up a whole step, then I've got my 5 chord. The notes of the 5 chord are being emphasized right there. So it's a really great way of again, separating certain key notes as you're playing. So now all of a sudden I'm not really looking at the scale as much as I'm looking at the chords, the A7 and the D7 and the E7, and responding to those by emphasizing key notes out of each chord. Now, here's something you might have heard of. If you've ever heard Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin, you're going to hear that same idea, but in a different inversion. What he does in Rock and Roll is he does this. You hear this. That thing going on? Well, it's the exact same thing. It's just what's happening is over the A chord, instead of playing those 2 notes, I'm taking this the 7th of the chord right here. I'm just playing the lower octave, so I'm playing those 2 notes. And when the 4 chord comes up, of course, I'd move back 1. And if the 5 chord came up, it'd be up here. So you can play them in that inversion as well. So if you were soloing over the 1 chord, and here comes the 4 chord, it'd sound really cool just to drop back and do something like that. Back to the 1, here comes the 5 chord. What do I want to do? Well, I'm going to do that. Here comes the 4 chord, and here comes the 1 chord. You see, I mean, there's just so many different things you could do over each one of those.